Hello and welcome to Founders Unplugged. I am your host, Greg McCallum, also known as the Pay-As-You-Scale Commercial Advisor. Before we start, just wanted to let you know all these conversations are completely voluntary by the founders who are involved, so please give them some love. They're very busy individuals and they're taking up to 2 hours out of their day to come and sit and chat with me about themselves, about their businesses, and about all other kinds of stuff. Look in the description on whatever platform you're watching this and you will find links to them for their LinkedIn profiles and also the projects and the startups they're working on. So do go and check those out. And while you're at it, maybe give me a bit of love too. I do this as something on the side to my main business. I run a company called ThinkWork. And so if you're looking for any advice, I also do free commercial advice for those for up to 1 hour. That job allows me to do this. Thank you so much. Enjoy the episode. Please do show love and appreciation for them. And of course, for this episode, if you enjoy it, like it, subscribe, share. Without further ado, I've talked long enough. Enjoy the episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Founders Unplugged, hosted by Greg McCallum.
Hello, sir.
Hey, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm cool. How are you?
Very slightly busy. Again, I do apologize. I got back from the States, and I think this was going to happen a couple of literally right after I got back from America.
Yeah.
I had severe jet lag, and so I kept waking up trying to do work, kind of napping, doing work for 3-4 days, and I must have missed it. So I do apologize.
No problem. I knew you were sort of flying here, there, and everywhere at the time. So how was it over there anyway?
It was. I mean, so it was a business trip, but it was on the beach in Florida. So
There's worse business trips.
yeah, exactly. But it was proper swampland. I mean, it was really weird. Like, we was doing this one interview, they're evening function. I'm outside, and it's really tropical. And I get this microphone. They're how do you find it? And as I start talking, I'm smiling. It's a little bit of rain and a little bit of wind. Within 2 minutes, the torrential rain, winds blowing, and I'm like, we love it here. It was proper. It was incredible. It was really good to meet the fund in person. They were really fun, really cool people, super intelligent. I mean, there's about 200 people at the conference, and the average age was about 17, 18.
Really?
One of them, one girl who I met on the Sunday morning, she was 16, going to pitch for a grant, and it was on how to make an app to do bio recording for athletes to be able to track stress, burnout, and how to optimize their performance. They're 16.
16. That's insane.
So this was the kind of people who were there.
Yeah.
So it was there was a lot of intellect, a lot of innovation, and their whole thesis is we back dropouts who didn't go to university, who just have this, I want to build this, and everyone thinks that you are fucking nuts. But we back that. And actually in his book, Pay Out on Fire, the GP, he mentioned how they've now outreturned MIT's own fund, which is E13, I think.
Really?
So MIT obviously only back their graduates. 2017 back dropouts and people didn't go to university, and they've outreturned one of the top universities in the world.
What does that say about university?
Well, so this is it, right? So going there, it was really fun. Met this one guy called Chris, head of ops at some a space tech company. We want to put factories in space, which will happen in the next couple of years. Space stations in we're really close to that point. And so he was saying how he wears a suit in the office, but he's a Texan. So when I come out of the office, I'm in my tank top, my camo trousers, my boots, and we both had the idea. We met on the Saturday. We both had the genius idea to scout out the nearest Irish pub on the Friday. Didn't even see each other there. I was like, there's an Irish pub here. I was like, yeah, I know. I went there yesterday to go check it out to see where I'm going to be. Most of my time in the evenings. So we got on really well. They were just awesome people.
That's great. Yeah, it's insane how young some of these entrepreneurs are coming up. We need to do an intro. So in case you haven't realized, I've already started record. This is how it goes, right? It's just record 2 hours. But there is some semblance of structure to this. And the only thing that is that I ask my guests to introduce themselves and their business. That's it. So then we can get back to talking about what we're talking about. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and the business?
Yes, so I'm Ewan Moran, the founder of Barback. I was at university in Exeter. I didn't want to take money from the World Bank, mum and dad, and I'm autistic. So I thought if we go into bartending, I'll learn how to talk and communicate. And now I don't stop talking. So, mission accomplished on that front. But after 3 months of my first job, I was the head bartender, manager, install trainer, because I was the only person left. Because we went to have a team of 16, and it was just so. Then you're doing 21 days on the trot, 16 hours a day, not allowed to have any lunch because you're too busy. You're passing out, you're throwing up, and it was a really, really rough environment. It's for your first job as well. While also being a university student, like, there was no study that was done during this time, and you were guilt tripped. You made you feel bad. You were really exploited. And I realized that a lot of my fellow comrades in other bars and restaurants also had this problem, but not just the workers, also managers, where their staff just walk out in one go, maybe because the manager could have treated people a little bit better, but then they have to do those 70, 80, 90 hours a week, and they have to go behind the bar and do the floors, which is, it's no easy task. So I thought, well, okay, this shouldn't be this way, let's change it. And so then, I created Barback to be, the labor infrastructure of hospitality and then beyond. The idea is we don't take commission for one. To the commission, if I want to hire you, put you into a bar, I'm going to charge that bar 30% commission and 20% tax on top of that commission. You can't afford to pay that commission, so you've got to pay a lower wage. They can't afford to live on that wage. The only person who wins in that scenario is the recruiter. And I just don't think that should be the case. I don't think just freelancing and the gig economy is the way forward, that you get no value from it. And the idea was, okay, well, if you do freelance shifts in a bar, how can we metric that to build your career? Because then every shift you're doing is actually working towards a proper CV, a proper resume, which details all your experiences. You can verify that as well. So when I'd have someone upload a CV into the bar, I'd look at the CV and say, I'm never hungover, I worked really hard, I'm really passionate. I look at the guy I've hired and I'm like, this isn't you. Like, and this was a huge problem. And recruitment fraud in the UK costs companies like £30 billion a year in fraudulent applications. You even get some people photoshopping their degrees. They haven't got a degree, they'll Photoshop one and send it off to like a bank for an internship. Yeah. And obviously most don't get through, but some do get through the cracks. And even then, you've got people spending time reviewing the CVs, scheduling interviews and everything before the DD is done. So it costs a lot of money, and I was like, okay, how do we just solve this for the betterment of? Well, we're going to take our fair share, but then also for workers and for employers and for society as a whole. And that was the whole idea.
And how did you solve it? Because this is the really interesting bit. Like it's actually how you've solved that without, like you said, doing what you didn't want it to do. So yeah, can you explain that? Sorry, I know you've before, but I'm sure you've also spent probably an entire how long were you in the States for? So like a week, 2 weeks?
It was basically like a week, yeah.
So you probably spent a whole week explaining this multiple times, so I apologize. But
yeah, it was fun because I had a British accent, they're American, so they're just look at you like, oh my god.
Yeah, you can literally say anything and then just be like, oh.
Yeah, no, it was really, really fun over there. I'm sure we'll talk about it shortly. So we had a freelancing component where you really need staff really quick, and you need them, ad hoc cash. We can place you based on where do you want to work. So for example, I love sports bars, but I like to be on the customer side of the bar. I don't like to work in a sports where you've got loads of fans, sometimes hooligans, because football is huge in the UK and I'm not a football fan.
Likewise.
But some people, if you're like a 6'2" rugby player, and you're working part-time in a bar, you've got all your sports fans here, you've got big screens, you're just pulling pints, and maybe you like that environment. But put me in a Latin American cocktail bar, a flower shirt, braces, I'm making cocktails, Latin music. I can work 16 hours a day and I'm happy about it. So it was about how do we place people where you're going to enjoy yourself and then you're going to work a lot harder. And then we can obviously do a lot of stuff with our technology to be able to then find the right place full-time for you. It's a bit like dating. So, you go on dates and you try and find someone who's suitable, and then you kind of settle down, supposedly. And that was kind of the idea we had. So it was basically reallocating labor And when we do this, we've got a shortfall in hospitality by around like 20,000 workers, but which we just don't have. And everyone says, well, we can't get this back because of Brexit, because it's not. It's a Western hemispherical issue. Every country is dealing with this problem. But if we get somebody from where they're working moderately well to a place where they will work exceedingly well, we can keep doing this. We can then reallocate labor in the entire industry to a more player efficient manner, and then you've optimized the industry. So you've got a smaller team who are more passionate and more harder working because they like their environment, they like who they're working with, they like everything. That you can have a smaller team and achieve the same results in terms of how much are you selling, how much are you taking behind the bar. So it's basically just making use of what we've got, making lemonade out of lemons. It's literally kind of one of our central theses. And then also offering a benefits package. I mean, a lot of these companies in a gig economy, they don't really offer much apart from we'll give you, a couple of jobs a day or whatever. So we thought, okay, we'll offer some like therapy, counselling, grocery discounts, like virtual GPs. We're working on more and more affiliates, and an industry discount card, which as an employee I also get access to.
Nice.
But then I'll also be behind the bar though. I've put this to investors and to advisors. Once a month I do commit to doing a shift behind the bar on the platform.
Really? Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, why not? You've got the access there. I mean, yeah. Just go and do a shift. Just go back behind the bar, and then you try and get your reviews, and then the manager gives you like a 1-star, and it's like, maybe I should be the CEO of the company then. It's the right person for the job.
It's funny because I do miss it as well. Because remember, I told you that that was my original. Well, I say that actually, I was a chef first, and I trained to be a chef first. But then as soon as I hit 18, I was like, right, I can pour a pint, so I'm going to pour a pint. Did that for many years into my mid-20s, and then built my first company around consulting in that industry and hospitality. But I do occasionally miss the buzz. I'm like you though. I prefer the Latin American cocktail experience, that kind of place. That's my ideal place, compared to the rowdy, slightly like you're smelling the air of danger in the air at every moment. Like you get this sixth sense for danger as a bar person as well. Like, do you find that where you can be anywhere now probably, and you can just feel it in the air? You're like, something's going to kick off, and then it does. Like, it's incredible.
I mean, I think that's a testament to the British drinking culture, because it's everywhere, right? I mean, when you've got like the French and you've got the Russians and Ukrainians all telling you that we drink too much. I mean, if the French, Ukrainians, and the Russians are telling you that, you can take that to the damn bank. Even as a Scotsman, like I'm mainly Scottish family, and I'm in London, and people drink like a fish. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I can fit right in here, but it's a bit too much even for me. But it's just, but you're right, and when everyone's doing that, no matter what kind of venue you go to, there is always that room for danger. If someone has a few too many shots, or you look at someone the wrong way, sometimes they've had a few too many, they start getting a bit of Dutch courage, and we have to look out for
all their team
early.
Loses, right? Someone says the wrong thing.
Well, this is why I prefer rugby.
Yeah, likewise.
With football, I mean, if you look at like Sheffield Wednesday, there's a guy in K that I was speaking to, was like a bank or something. It was like Sheffield Wednesday, where he comes from. They average 1 death per game. Like it's just
that should not be a statistic.
It's like you're blue and I'm red, and therefore
in rugby, all of the fans are mixed in the stands. It's fantastic.
Well, this is it. Yeah. Then afterwards, you might have a bit of banter, but you are still drinking in arms. So I saw that difference quite early on. I've been to a couple of football games because I still support Liverpool. I follow them. Our whole family has, and it's just a thing. I go to their charity matches because that's a bit more fun. It is,
a bit more friendly.
But I always support the LFC charity. But just totally different environment, and that's why football nights at sports bar I just couldn't do because I can't hold my tongue. So I just can't go. But the Latin American cocktail bars, like, you don't really get that. And we only had it once when I was a bar manager, and that was literally because some guy outside who were either drunk or homeless started trying to have a fight. And then
it's usually people who aren't really in that sort of into that scene who like get into it for whatever reason, like by accident. They don't really know what's going on, and then they're usually the problem. It was the same with like, because I worked in a lot of live music venues, and I loved working live music venues. That was my thing for quite a while. You would find the same thing. Like if it was like a hip hop night, you get someone who wasn't clearly interested in hip hop showing up, and they didn't understand, and that would be the problem. Or like a heavy metal night, and a bunch of people walk in and went into it because they didn't know what they were doing, that kind of thing, and that was usually a problem. But yeah,
we literally had so on the sim up, we had these two guys come in. And they could barely speak English. They just wanted a drink. They were just like, it was a Tuesday night, I think it was. They were literally just trying to find a drink. And it was like, we've stopped serving. And my assistant manager, I mean, she's like 5 foot nothing. And there's two guys in like tracksuit bottoms, tracksuit tops, and I'm like, so I'm just stood behind her, just to help. Like, if you do swing, you're gonna fuck around and find out. Which you're not allowed to do actually in our employer handbook. If there's physical violence, you have to remove yourself. I'm like, but these guys are pretty
these
big.
These days. Back in my day, though, mate, we were door staff, we were bar staff, we were everything. Like, it was crazy. It was the Wild West. Like,
I kind of like that. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's one bar, the Monkey Suit in Exeter, really, really good bar. Like the others, and the whole team. Their team have been there for their core team have been there for about 3, 4, 5 years, which doesn't really happen. They had Mother's Day where they closed like Mother's Day and Father's Day, and Mark said, I haven't got to be open for it, so the team could just get to spend the day with their Mother's Day, Father's Day. Every couple of months they'll go paddleboarding down the beach and stuff, and he just like puts them on his car, ships them down. They just go out for and this is it doesn't cost much. I mean, to take a paddleboarding on a Sunday requires like 20 quid in fuel, and that's it. Maybe an ice cream, and that's what you're gonna do.
It's interesting because that directly ties into the problem you're trying to solve, which is this labor market crisis within, because it is an industry which is neglected, like in terms of the people perception of people who work in hospitality and in nightlife as not being a real career, and that's absolute nonsense. Like there's so many people, like it was my career and I took it very seriously, and I met a lot of other people and worked with a lot of other people who were the same, but it's almost like there's a couple of layers to it. There are a lot of people who join because it's just something to do to earn a bit of money, and they don't take it seriously, but there is a very large majority of people actually who are very serious about this career, especially when it comes to sort of the mixology side of things, and that sort of area, and of course in the management side of things. And it's very difficult to find organizations that actually treat their employees well in that industry, or at least it used to be. I think it's getting better, but it seems to be taking time.
It was, and then the Rona happened, and then shit went backwards. And now obviously with cost of living crisis, recession, potentially double dip recession coming around the corner, we've got a booklet for the next 4 to 5 years, and so now people aren't spending on vocational stuff like this. But what's true, so little story. Actually, you have Turtle Bay and Las Iguanas, opposite sides of the road. I started here and ended here. I went all around the city, with my jobs and everything, but I ended up right opposite the road. It's literally a fucking story. And Turtle Bay, you were paid minimum wage at £7.50. You're using like Glen's vodka and Glen's rum and Christoph's gin. You can't even buy this stuff in Tesco. It's literally wholesale. I actually remember some woman came up to me saying, "Are you sure it's just Sauvignon Blanc? It tastes more like a Pinot Grigio." And in my head, I was like, "Whatever it is, it's £3 a bottle wholesale."
Not either. Like, it's cooking wine from a carton.
Like whatever it is, it's £3 wholesale. You can't even get this in like a discount. So Poundland would sell it. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, sure. Your wine. But that's where we was treated really shit, really long hours. You're allowed to have lunch. If you're busy, that's it. No lunch for you today. So we'd go upstairs to the stable and get 2 bottles of 8.4% proof cider, neck one, put one in a coffee cup, and that's our lunch. So this was a mentality, and this is what the whole team did. There was no benefits at all. If you wanted to get tips behind the till, you weren't allowed to take it as a drink and then take out the cash. You had to get tips to drink, but you had to take that drink. Right. And if you were closing down the bar, you had to leave the bar straight after closing, so you weren't allowed to have the drink. So they were trafficking like money through this policy, right? This was an actual proper problem. But Las Iguanas, every month, every single bartender had to design a cocktail, and if that got onto their like 4-drink hot list that month, Just given like I think half of like £500 in a bonus, and if that got onto the actual menu, you were flown up to Sweden with absolute. You'd have 2 weeks holiday with a credit card. You go to their distillery, and you get like I think it was a £1,000 or £2,000 bonus and 2 weeks of absolute, and you've got a holiday free. It doesn't count towards your holiday days either.
Yeah,
and that amazing. That's just like a high street venue, let alone the actual proper mixology venues. So and the story behind this is so Las Iguanas and Turtle Bay, the founders were actually all three together at one point, and then one left to make Turtle Bay and the two left to make Las Iguanas.
Right.
And you can kind of see the resentment from Turtle Bay and then Las Iguanas in my experience. One was made, let's do it the cheapest possible, let's undercut them and stuff. And then Las Iguanas like, but hey, no, we actually care about our customers and care about what we produce. So I think it's about the mentality of finding the right managers, the right business owners, and the right workers. And if they are put together, you can really make something special.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's just like with any career, though, isn't it? You've got to start sometimes at the bottom, and you don't get to that until a bit later on. As long as you can, power through the shit shifts to get to the good ones, right? Yeah, it's funny. I always think back to a cocktail bar back home in Oxford. I don't know if it's still there. It was called Raoul's. Very awesome place. Very small. It was like I think it was like a converted flat or something. It was really quite crammed. But the only downside to the place was you'd be waiting half an hour for someone to make your cocktail, right? Because they were that detail oriented around their cocktails. But they were all mixologists. They were all salaried, very well paid. They would frequently all be flown out to source different ingredients and to learn about the ingredients. They'd go to the distilleries. They would spend the time with if they would all have their own specializations. So one bar person, one bartender would be a specialist in rum, another would be in whiskey, and so on. And people would be headhunted to work there. Like you wouldn't be able to apply. Like that's the kind of thing I think of as like people consider that as being the goal, in their career as a bar person, to work somewhere like that. And locally it was known as the place where, you would strive to work in. Like that's we need more of that, And some people would say that's quite pretentious, but at least they looked after their employees, and it was considered a real career.
It's not even pretentious. That's saying like, you're going to start off as a paralegal at PwC, but you want to end up, being at like your own like prestigious law firm. I mean, that's just you want to get to the top of your game, and that is the top of the field. Like you get some bartenders in the Savoy over in by like Strand, and they're on a lot of money. They're more money than mid-level managers at like Amazon or something. You can actually get a really good job after this, and even if you don't go down the specialist mixologist or chefing route, you also have the managerial route, which they become area manager. You can become. There's a lot of. It's seen as a stepping stone just to make some money while at university, but there really is an entire. I mean, if you want to be like an accountant, and you go bartending while you're at university, you can then go into corporate and become an accountant in that place where you've worked, and you know the ropes already. So it's making your job a lot easier. Instead, we have this culture of the big four are where you want to be, the huge banks where you want to be, where you're working 90 hours a week, and you're barely surviving, and you're going to be lonely, and we glorify that, which is Yeah, I know that's a whole other subject, but
just the experience, right, of working in a bar, like you saying about how you did it as almost a way of becoming more sociable. And like I think I mentioned this to you before, but and you've probably seen this too. But the amount of times I've seen very shy, meek people like apply for the job, and I'm like, we'll break you, like you know what I mean. And like within weeks, they're completely different. They've come out of themselves. They're more confident. They can speak with people, and it's transformative. Like because you're thrown in the deep end of social interaction, and it's really great for building people's confidence and getting them out there.
And it literally it's one of the industries where it really doesn't matter where you are. So like in finance, if you're a woman going into finance, I mean, like you're going to be judged, and you're going to be you're going to be judged, and people are going to have like their thoughts about you because you're a woman in finance. In hospitality, and at least I've got students who tell me this, but hospitality, we had one girl who joined at Turtle Bay, again a little bit shy, a little bit passive. Within about 3 months, like she was literally bossing us around. Actually like bossing us around, like organizing everything, and we'd actually give her control of the bar on a Friday and Saturday because she could actually manage it. and it's just to see that transformation. It's just you all just fit in, and you do get some incredible moments. Like I've got one where we were literally 4 deep. It's me and the manager who I didn't like. He was like, again, like 5'0". He had little man syndrome. This is how the cookie
sounds like you're describing me. That was me. I was that manager back in.
But he was also like 21, 22 years old, recent graduate, so he had a lot to prove as well.
Right.
But this one point, we're 4 hours, and we're back to back with our cocktails, like looking at like these hordes of customers. We're just back to back, just like Jesus Christ, I'll take this, you take that, and it was burned into my brain. Like that moment, it was so just like incredible.
Yeah, it's when everything's working in perfect harmony. Like it's like a dance, and everyone's just on it. And there's no, no one's bumping into each other, no one's dropping anything. You know what I mean? It's just, and it's running like a dream. And before you know it, it's the end of the night, and you're cleaning down. You're like, how the fuck did we do that? That was amazing. Yeah. Like, there's something very satisfying about that buzz that you get of just bossing.
Yeah.
It's
just, I know, and you get to do what you're thinking on your feet as well, which is also really, really rewarding, rather than you have to be sat down. And I think we're just kind of telling everyone listening, like, dude, go work in a bar for like 6 months.
100%.
Like, you'll love it.
100%. Even if you're working like full time somewhere and you want to do an occasional like just night, like, because you don't socialize enough, you don't like meet enough new people, go and do it. Like
that's where I can help.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Go to Barback. Yeah, and you know what? I actually forgot to do something while you're talking. What I normally do is I share my screen and show your profile on the website as you're talking. But I was so engrossed by what you were saying, I forgot to do it. But I mean, we could. Anyone who wants to find a shift or find work, this is where you go. Sorry, I forgot to do that. But I do. There are times I miss it, but of course there are some negatives around it too, right? Which is that rocking in at 5 a.m. and drinking too much as well. That's a very easy thing to do, and maybe some other stuff as well.
Although the drinking thing, I watched a film last week. It was about some like chess match in like the Cold War. So like the USA, like the USSR, they had like a chess match in like I think it was like Warsaw in Warsaw in Poland. And this Russian colonel, he says, never underestimate a man who can drink you under the table. And I was like, this is true, actually.
Yeah.
Everyone can say, oh, you're drinking too much. But then, if he's drinking with you and then you end up, spilling your deepest, darkest secrets, never underestimate that man.
Yeah. That's it.
But I mean, I lost about a good 20, 25 kilos when I was in hospitality at like the thick of it. There is that other side to it, which, when it's poorly managed, you got no staff, and again, that's what we're trying to solve. Check back in the industry in 2 years' time, and we should have made a pretty big impact at that point.
It's funny, actually. There are a lot of parallels between the sort of alcohol-led side of hospitality and the sales industry, in the sense that there's very similar problems of burnout, of quite a lot of reports of poor management, being overworked, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, things like that. There's quite a lot of that in the parallel, and I'm sure there are other industries where there's some parallels too. But seeing as how I've been in both, I can very much directly see them, and it's quite boring. And it takes a certain level of experience and maturity, and also just sort of luck, I think, maybe in finding the right places to work with, the right people to work for.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah, it is. It very much is. And a certain amount, if you really want to be in it, a certain amount of persistence to just, keep trying to find that right place, which isn't always easy to do. But and which is why it's great to see that you're looking to solve that problem. And am I right in thinking, because I think we touched on this before when we spoke a while ago, like, you don't just want to help this particular industry, right? Are there plans to help others? Can you talk about that? I don't know.
So
I don't want to ruin anything for you, but like, are you able to talk on any of that? Or
no, of course. I am fucking nuts when it comes to just like scalability and just sheer impact.
Sorry, fucking chair is just. Oh, sorry. What? So sorry. Just a quick tangent. This fucking chair keeps going down. So throughout the course of these podcast episodes, I sort of go down. It's really annoying. Sorry, carry on.
So we actually use blockchain to do this. So our long-term play, we're implementing our own layer one blockchain. And essentially here, what our plan is to be the layer one, like global infrastructure for labor. So building a global employment blockchain, or the GEC. which also stands for crazy
catchy.
in Afrikaans and Dutch. Yeah, and so there's a couple of parallels, but building one blockchain where all workers can build and verify their careers, and then you can send it to an employer, and that employer knows who's doing honest proof that everything here is true, that everything that is on this CV is real, it's actually happened, it's been verified, there's no recruitment fraud, and obviously they can then look at like the matchability, almost as it were, the compatibility of the worker and of the employer. We can do all that using AI. So we start with hospitality because, well, one, you're with authors, you write what you know about. I know hospitality, but it's also people's first role. It's their first job, normally while at university as well. So they'll graduate from university and they may apply to, say, PwC, for example. And we can then send their career token over to PwC and on board departments of PwC to start using our platform too. Then we can keep spreading to where they go, providing lifetime value for our initial workers, because they're building their career from the get-go, maximizing lifetime value for them and for obviously us, of course. And that's how we start to build this global labor infrastructure. The military as well is one that I'm looking at. So my family, my uncle was in the veterinary corps over in Camp Bastion. My granddad was in the Argylls. He served under Colonel Mad Mitch, which, with that kind of name, she was over in like Borneo and Aden and stuff like that. I was over in Berlin as well. I actually met Rudolf Hess. He was like a prison guard for Rudolf Hess. And so he was one of the Reich ministers over in the Nazi Empire. And he's the one who flew over to Scotland to try and negotiate peace back in like 1941, 42, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
So his plane got downed, and he got arrested, taken to I think it was MI6 headquarters, MI9 headquarters. And the USSR said, if you talk to him, we'll declare war on you. They literally said, if you talk to Rudolf Hess, we will declare war. They basically didn't want peace. The USSR wanted to invade, obviously, what had happened over in Stalingrad and how close they got to Moscow herself. So they didn't want peace. They wanted Hitler set on the plate, which they ultimately got. So anyway, so he got put in prison in Berlin. So my granddad's there after World War II, and just kind of settled. He got the Berlin Wall and everything. And actually, his regimental sergeant major said, if the Russians decide to storm us, you've got like half the city was with the Allies, half was the USSR. I said, but it's all in East Germany, which is all from the USSR. And I said, if the Russians decide to storm us, they'll take the city in 16 minutes, but you'll sell your lives as dearly as possible. And that's what they were told. They were told, if the Russians decide to march forward, you're going to last 16 minutes before the whole city falls. Jeez. But you'll sell your lives as dearly as possible. And that's what they were told going into this. So anyway, so he was part of him was guarding the prison where Rudolf Hess was, and he's got his own garden. It's one of the stories that he told me, which he loved. And he's got like a little walnut tree in the garden. Apparently, people walk along the top of like the prison, and he'd get little walnuts and just start like lobbing them at the prison guards, at the soldiers. And they can't do anything. Like it's not like a water hose. You just start like hosing down like the soldiers on the walkway. But my granddad, he had a few like he had lunch with him just to like, Jesus Christ, what happened? And this is like unfettered information to an insight into history here. But he was like, if you could say, one of the moderates, one of the ones who didn't want to really go that way. Obviously, Hitler was an absolute psychopath and a madman. But yeah, so that's basically why. I don't know how we got onto Germany.
It always comes up.
But how we said the military. And my granddad, did that stuff. So yeah, like that. So we've got that kind of history with. Like the military kind of side of things. So I know very much what happens with veterans. I got another granddad that goes in the 4th Royal Tank Regiment. And sometimes I've seen with my family that they've all applied to the military or got into the military. So in fact, my mom went to apply to Sandhurst and then found out she was pregnant with me. So that was literally why she couldn't become an officer. So really strong. We know exactly what's wrong with veterans, how we can help. And with that play, it's people come at the military, and there's no infrastructure to get them into work. We have work programs, we have government programs, but as we know with government programs, they don't really work. So we can bridge that gap between getting them from the military world to the civilian world. So if you look at, say, JP Morgan, if you get a veteran as like head of operations in a department, that's going to be the tightest run ship imaginable. All the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. 5 minutes early is on time for them, right? So we could achieve that, but there's no infrastructure to do so. So we can ledger their time in the military. Then when they leave, we can then find them a role straight away. Because I don't know if you know much about the circle of life almost, where you have like your job, your career, your family, your friends, your hobby, your partner. And if you have that, it basically contradicts addictions. And if you have this whole circle, you basically probably get addicted to anything unless you really try. Take one of these parts of your life out, then there's a hole which drugs and alcohol and all that fun stuff can replace. I'm not a psychologist, but this is essentially what the paper suggests. So if they come out of the military and they don't get a job straight away, they've taken out a part of their life, a big part of their life, which can now get filled by drinking whiskey at midday.
It's a very very clearly defined purpose with a very in a very regimented and purposeful sort of way. It's a huge culture shock to suddenly remove that from someone's life, isn't
it? So if we can move them from that place straight into work, then you're going to mitigate any damages. Right. Which obviously reduces burden on the NHS, on the VA in America. The VA has been in a crisis since it was formed. They've not been able to solve that one. We can stop suicides, mental health problems, all this stuff just by literally putting them into a place of work straight away, and then they can start dealing with their problems. But if you don't have that place of work, then it's such a shock. It's a different. When you look at the military, they are literally their own society. They have their own laws. They have their own laws. They have their own judicial like process. Their own judiciary. They have their own courts. They have their own land. They have their own. They're a different society. So you're literally going from like one country to another. Only one's quite authoritarian. It's chain of command. It's you do this, you do that. Yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. And that's.
And decision making is life or death, and bad times equal trauma as opposed to slight inconvenience. It's everything is a much more extreme level of emotional intensity, and yet the culture is more than likely you can't even show that there are those emotions in the first place because that's a distraction from you doing your job. So it's a very contradictory experience as well. So how does blockchain exactly, in the way that you've implemented it, actually work in the sense of is it just a case that it's kind of like a ledger of experience, or is it also in some ways gathering or you're going to gather information on skill sets on various applicable skills, whether they're soft skills, hard skills?
Of course, both. So a lot of labeling, a lot of metricing here. When you look at it. So what we do in hospitality, we can attach when they get a review saying you've got 5-star in say like a team leadership or teamwork. Right. We can then metric that in say a sports bar or in like a fine dining restaurant or in a wine bar. So we can gather these labels and how they work in sync with each other. Say when you work at like in an accounting role at an accounting firm, we can then label what was your role. What are the metrics in that role, and it's just using a lot of metadata. They call it meta CVs. A lot of metadata all put together. So then you can filter and you can use AI to basically look at who's the right person for the job, and how did they aggregate in a certain place. They may have you may have no team working skills in accounting at PwC, but if you put you in like a small to medium enterprise as a chief accounting officer or chief financial officer, maybe that just goes way up. So we can aggregate based on what position and what place you're going to end up, and then what does that look like.
That would be so great to be integrated with a platform like LinkedIn, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If anyone from LinkedIn is watching or listening, then they should integrate with this, because of that is I think very slowly, and for a lot of industries has already replaced the CV. And a lot of people are using that as a sort of a place of truth compared to the CV, and a little bit more digestible. But of course, people can just make shit up on there too, right?
Well, this is the problem with like LinkedIn and social media as a whole. I mean, I remember when a lot of the media were in uproar about Elon Musk allowing everyone to get a blue badge. I said, oh no, only journalists can get a blue badge, or only celebrities. But no, he's basically saying you can verify yourself, and then you show that I'm a real human. And then Zuckerberg did the same thing, and no one went mad at him for that. So I'm just going to put that out there. But to me, it's quite alien that you can have something like LinkedIn with no verification.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying I'm a worker. It's there for hiring. And I don't understand how you can sign up, just create an account. Oh, I'm Ewan Moran. And hopefully everyone believes that I am who I say I am. And it opens yourself up to like fraud. I mean, somebody could have created an account of somebody else, gotten more like followed something, and just started spreading libel.
Yeah,
this is a huge on a corporate platform for corporates. This is a huge problem. You don't see much of it, thankfully. I think the LinkedIn team do a really good job of making sure none of this stuff happens, but it does still happen. I still get a lot of fraud in my inbox in LinkedIn. That's just most people.
I had my account hacked not too long ago because of it as well. So yeah. And it's a problem everywhere. Like I'm a huge advocate of the sort of digital passport idea of like creating a sense of actual accountability based on your kind of digital citizenship, right? I quite like that idea, and I know a lot of people see that as quite dystopian, as quite authoritarian, but actually I think that it's quite an important step that we should probably take in the not too distant future.
I mean, so it's in and of itself, the technology is like that authoritarian. The issue is when you have to take that digital ID with you everywhere you go, because then you can be tracked, then you can be labeled. It's like the Tesco Club card. If something is free for the product, and Tesco get all the data on exactly what you're buying. It's tied to your account. They can see what you buy, what you like, and they can then target you. So if you could do this for all data that you ever collected, it's all tied to one ID. That's just that data can be abused. We always say, our government wouldn't abuse us. Yeah, well, some of you are left, some of you are right. And whenever the opposite government gets into power, you don't like them because they're this and they're that. So, why can't we see consensus that it has the ability to be misused? I mean, the US, they created this disinformation governance board, which then got taken down because it was literally like the Ministry of Truth in 1984. And it was like, okay, so now the government has sweeping power to just ban anything they deem to be misinformation. Well, I mean, if you look at fourth generation warfare, psychological operations, misinformation has always been used in warfare. Like you always use the art of misinformation. It's a way to be able to distract and to misinform your enemies. So if a government is then overseeing what's misinformation, they're surely going to be able to allow their misinformation to go through, but nobody else's. And whoever's in power can then weaponize that. So Democrats are in power now, the Republicans could go into power and do something similar to their end. And so the idea is let's just not have it, and then no one can use it. And I know it's
but it's the same as anything. I mean, it's like, of course, I mean, it's the same as any technological advancement. When it's made for the greater good, then of course there is always a risk that it could be abused. Like, AI is where we are right now with that sort of same topic on a much more, well, in a slightly more philosophical sense. But then, even to use a very analog example, CCTV, right? Surveillance. Like, it's a logical thing to say, on this street, there have been a huge amount of violent crimes. We now have a technology where we can, be recording. So if anyone, is engaged in a violent act, we can prosecute, and it will be a sort of a preventative measure as well. And lo and behold, you install the cameras, crime drops. There's no stabbings on that road anymore, or whatever. But then, of course, you have situations where governments, private. Mischievous individuals, whatever, other countries, like you said, other foreign governments, bad agents or whatever, can use those systems to monitor when there's no need to, or gather information. So I think that's always a dilemma with every advancement, right? And in some ways, you could even make that same the argument about what you're building. Like, I'm sure there's probably ways that individuals could misuse that, or any technology. It's about finding balance and trying to put the measures in place to keep that from happening, right?
This is true, and I had a debate about something like this, but existential risk when I was over in Florida. That is true. There were always positives and negatives to anything, but as we keep advancing, those positive negatives keep on getting they're exacerbated. So CCTV, that's great, but the onus is on being able to identify that person, to find that person. You then have facial recognition CCTV, where now all of a sudden everything's instantly already ledgered and stored. And the Met Police said in London they're going to start putting facial CCTV in across the whole city, and that motorists shouldn't expect to have privacy in their vehicle. Okay, China, and that's my instant reaction.
China's not the greatest example of using technology to keep the people free.
But that's what the Met Police said. But you shouldn't expect to have privacy in your own car. I'm like,
the Met Police. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about. Right, okay.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Say China. Right, okay.
Like,
sorry.
I was like, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
Like in China, I mean, you have to say places like Shenzhen, really, really safe areas.
Yeah.
You get cameras that actually track you and everything. You got loads of cameras. Super police state, and there is an element of safety. Everyone's safe apart from being safe from the government.
Right.
And this is a problem. So when you get to that level of technology constantly being recorded 24/7, constantly surveilled, the ramifications then just become so much greater.
Yeah.
And so what I'm arguing isn't that it's on you. Should we have the tech or not? Or should we not use it in our civilian population? We use it abroad if you want. I mean, for all of our adversaries overseas, sure, you can use this technology, but at home, we pose a risk to our population. And like I say, the Conservatives could institute this stuff, but then Labour can take over, and then they could put these cameras outside Conservative Party headquarters and find out, like all these, like, it can be abused, and it can be abused to such a larger scale the more and more advanced technology becomes, just like AI.
Yeah.
We can keep saying we have. Okay,
no, I was just going to say, I suppose in some ways it's kind of like, really everyone on the sort of the edge of these kind of technological advancements all must have and still will continue to have their own Oppenheimer moment of just like, if I don't do it, someone else more nefarious will. And it's kind of, I think there's almost a responsibility when you are on the precipice of some kind of discovery or advancement to be that person to bring it forward. If you are well-meaning and at least you believe to be, regardless, because of just not doing it because you're worried about the potential negative consequences means nothing. Someone will, especially now, like you said, touching on AI, like it won't be long before it won't be us making these sort of technological advancements anyway, I believe, so we might as well do it while we have some semblance of control over the outcome.
Ticking. But after when Oppenheimer did actually create the bomb, he did say, I am become death, destroy our worlds. Even though he had to make it because somebody else would, he still realized the gravity behind what he'd done. Actually, in Florida, I met Essa Dyson, the daughter of Freeman Dyson, who worked with like Oppenheimer and Einstein. And I was just like, oh my God, like just tell me stuff, because he invented the theory behind being able to escape heat death of the universe, and stuff like that, and just like incredible scientists. But they still recognized that what they'd done was going to forever change the world. And with AI,
little to no choice in that situation, really. And I'm actually quite excited about the movie that's coming out soon as well.
So you have to watch Oppenheimer, at like midday, and then go and get some food, then watch Barbie with like a whole case of beer, and just like
just try and offset it. Although I don't know, man, like there could be some pretty existential stuff in that film too. Like you never know these days.
Do you see it got banned in Vietnam because so on Barbie they've got like a map which shows that Taiwan's part of China, and part of like Vietnam is part of China thing. I mean, it's just,
even the Barbie movie getting political. You can't escape it.
Well, I mean, it's true. Even if you look at like F9, like Fast and Furious 9, it was literally owned by the Chinese Department of Propaganda. It's just like it's just you have to be aware of where things are coming from, and it's just and again, because then you start again. Entertainment
someone
is
just
also
knocked on my door, and I don't. Why on earth someone knocked on my door? Excuse me, I will edit this bit out. Excuse me, sorry, one moment.
Awesome.
Of course, it's an Amazon delivery. My dog normally barks like crazy, and it's a right pain in the ass when I'm doing these, but that didn't happen, so that's good. He's learning. Sorry, you were saying.
Just going back to that kind of misinformation and abuse of tech kind of thing. Even entertainment can also be abused.
Yeah,
you could put stuff into entertainment either one way or the other to try and kind of show like ideas of stuff.
And there's a lot of people out there that are claiming that's been happening for years and still happening now. I mean, especially when you look at a lot of movies who seem seemingly have no connection to any political topics. Superhero movies, fantasy movies, whatever. And now they're getting more and more and more political. Even things like the remake of what was it recently? The remake of Peter Pan. As an example, where a lot of people were just like, what on earth is, because apparently I haven't seen it, but apparently completely destroyed the main points of it, and decided to put a lot of sort of very new liberal politics in that movie. So I can definitely see that.
That's Disney, and I mean, I used to love Disney growing up, and I've been to Disney World and all that kind of stuff. But the founder was a Nazi. Right, like he did like National Socialism, so that philosophy is going to be. But and a really controversial point that I'm going to make. You had an author called H.G. Wells. Both of you know about him, and he spoke in the Oxford Union, and he said, "I'm calling on a liberal fascisti. The communists have the Russia, the Italians are fascists. The world is sick of democracy. I'm calling for the opposite of fascism, which is far more greater in its ambition and its goals." By saying, so we're going to create fascism in liberalism and go further than what Nazism did. And when you look at like Disney, for example, who's lobbying for these values, which, I mean, I'm a libertarian. I spoke to a lot of liberal philosophy. Then when you start trying to put it in everywhere, and this has now gone beyond just trying to move society forward. This has gone into propaganda. It's become a lot more aggressive. And that's where a lot of people go, okay, that's a little bit too far. Like you got to ease people into stuff. You can't just say take it or leave it. Otherwise, you can't do that. And
the point is, of any philosophy, it just misses the nuance of the human experience. Nothing can be as black and white as extremes of political views make it, because then it just completely eradicates the point of existence. It's never that straightforward. And so
humanity always returns back to the middle anyway.
Yeah,
we always return back to the middle, as we have throughout the entirety of history. We've always come back to client democratic nations that we kind of get a bit to left, a bit to right. I mean, we always go back to the center.
But extremist views are very attractive to most people because they're definitive, right, in the way that they're defined quite often and communicated, and people like that because the world and existence is a very ambiguous thing. Having someone say, I know for certain, or this is the way that we should think, it's a very attractive proposition to a lot of people compared to the ambiguity of most topics.
But it's also really profitable as well. When you start putting really high profile matters in the media, people there, they're more engaged. If it hits the emotions, people are more engaged, they're watching it more, and then the advertisers get a lot more money out of it.
In theory, but then you look at the track record of some of the Disney movies that have come out, and maybe that's not really the case, like the box office. But if you mean in terms of politics and
yes, like news corporations,
right.
I mean. But like the BLM protests in 2020 were massively profitable for like CNN and like ABC and stuff. The January 6th coverage as well, that was really profitable too. Whenever there's an MP that's been disgraced over in the UK media, again, viewership goes up, ad revenue goes up. It's just when you put these issues on on prime time every single day, they get captivated because they're emotionally associated to that, which I think that's some kind of torture, surely. The fact that you're constantly being shown stuff that emotionally charges you and you can't escape it, that must be a form of like emotional mental torture over a long period of time.
I think there's some sort of I remember reading on this years ago, but there's an evolutionary bias in humans towards negative information and even a negative disposition in general. When
it's more powerful.
Yeah, and it takes a more effort to have a positive disposition, and so I think it just feeds into that in a lot of ways. The news cycle that, and also I think there's a certain amount of wanting to be informed on something for sort of almost social purposes, that if there is a large topic of the day, like let's say the war in Ukraine, or BLM protests, like you said, things like that if you know that everyone else is aware of these topics, then there's a certain amount of FOMO if you're not involved in that too. So it's almost like a social credit situation to and
you want to be cool, you want to be popular, you want to
and then just that sort of everyone's got the kind of morbid interest in things too, right?
No, I'm there, and I just don't like when you see actual valuable movements, like what happened with BLM, like what happened with a lot of freedom movements over in like Canada and Australia. It just gets people then get hijacked by the media, weaponized by their feelings. So like everyone supports a lot of these issues, but then the media just goes, "Oh, you feel this way? We're just going to keep on playing this just to weaponize people and their feelings," and that's where I kind of draw the line.
And I think it's a real shame for the BLM movement, because if it has been absolutely cannibalized. I think I remember a few years back, before especially the sort of protests and everything, when they really blew up. I remember hearing about them as an organization and knew a few people who were, supporters of it, and worthy cause. There was a serious problem, with police brutality, especially primarily in the States. Very important topic to be talked about. The rhetoric coming from individuals in that organization since then has entirely changed, and it's clearly just a few, or quite a significant amount of bad apples in that organization that have just taken it over, and it isn't a particularly well run organization. I mean, it's not really an organization. It doesn't have leaders. It doesn't have an official recognized group of individuals that run it or that represented it, or anything like that. It is a movement, and I think that's done it a huge disservice, because it had the traction actually to make some significant change, and unfortunately it's kind of gone off the rails, in my opinion, and I think that's problematic.
It had the traction to make significant change on a global scale, and then the founder spent like $6 million on just buying mansions.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It was I saw that, and I was like, I don't believe this. This is the propaganda. I'm going to look into this. And she spent like $6 million on different properties, buying herself some mansions from the donations that were given. And I'm like, now this just undermines everything.
Yeah.
Like, this is the cause that people on left and right and in between can all get on board with, and then someone does something like that.
And look, that's a really interesting thing to bring up, though, because like, how easy is it for even the most seemingly meaning individuals in our society can be compromised by, tempted by, or corrupted by things like like money and power. Like,
this is what I was going to try and say like 5 minutes ago was, it's the laws of physics here when it comes to people being attracted to negativity and how it's used to it takes a long time to construct like a building. It doesn't take that long to destroy it. It takes a long time to build a society. It doesn't take long to destroy it. Like creation takes such a much longer time and such resources to create than destruction. It's very easy, very quick, and the same with negativity. It's very quick, very easy. To get out of that negative mood that you have takes normally people sleep on it and they wake up okay the next morning. These negative emotions can last for days, but happiness doesn't last that long. You have to keep on trying to move towards it. It's practically the laws of physics. And it's harbored into our biology and into the laws of the universe.
And I think, and it's it absolutely is. And I think there are. I mean, a bit of a random one. Have you heard of the pencil trick? Apparently, this is a useful. So apparently, if you get a pencil and you put it in your mouth like this, it improves your mood, because it changes the muscle structure in your mouth to form something of a smile, which releases chemicals in your brain to improve your mood. Apparently, I don't know any more about it. I probably butchered the reasoning behind it, but something to do with that. I don't know if it works or not, because I've never tried it when I've been pissed off, because I've been too pissed off to think of grabbing a pencil. But but I think there's a lot to be said as well for just lifestyle too, right? And not to get too off tangent, because we're really going off the rails. But like if it's biological, then you can do certain things to affect that. Like some of the most negative people I've met in my life have not been people who have taken care of themselves physically. Right. And so there's a lot to be said for a good diet to being healthy and all that. And we know that anyway. I think doctors will say to you, you're feeling down, go to the gym, like eat better. But even just having a more negative leaning attitude, like I think it can be attributed to easily to lifestyle. And as human, you will always be slightly attracted to that, maybe a little bit more, but it can make your life a little bit easier, I think, by living a healthier lifestyle. And purpose, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, purpose is an incredibly important thing. Because a lot of people who you see on the extreme levels of and fringes of these kinds of debates, or spending a lot of time trying to put other people down, or having very prejudicial views on things, they've got fuck all else to do. If they had a purpose, they probably wouldn't be so worried about other people's business.
It's just like it's one of those when like you park like a single yellow line and someone complains to the council and puts your license plate, and it's like, honestly, Kevin, if this is literally on the top of your list, like, oh my god. Just
get a hobby.
Just get a hobby. Just get a hobby. Go outside. Look at the trees. Like do something.
But for a Karen, that is their hobby. It's being a Karen, right?
I saw one video actually. It was I was in the UK. A guy's got a Tesla, and someone comes up saying, "You're leaving the car on. It's exhausting. Loads of dirty, nasty chemicals. It's not allowed anymore." It's it just shows it onto his Tesla. Goes, "Really, this car? But it's electric." It's like, "Oh yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you?" It's like,
I think I saw that. It's brilliant.
You have to laugh at it. I mean, it's actually a testament to where we're headed. But I mean, you have to laugh at it.
But here's the thing: what is paradoxical about that, right? Is like, yeah, that's we're talking about the pros and cons of technology, and then like the direction that we're headed with people's attitudes and so on. But the fact that we saw that and laughed at it, and we were able to call that person out, potentially humbling them because it went viral and made them realize I need to hopefully change my behavior. Although in these cases, usually people double down. That's potentially quite a useful thing, that we can call people out in society who are acting inappropriately, share that with the world, and there's a certain level of accountability. And of course, the flip side to that is the sort of cancel culture. So there's a pro and con to that too. Yeah. But like, I don't know, maybe I'm an optimist at heart. I like to try and see the silver linings in these things.
It's like a way to educate people, I guess. I mean, I did see so he basically said, when it comes to these like Karens or Kevins, it's basically people who've never had a slap before in their life. Yeah. We've never, and everyone's got a plan until you get hit in the face.
Exactly.
And sometimes you do need to, kind of be told in strong terms that, look, don't act this way. This is not an okay way to act. Actually, in this building that I'm at, my accommodation, you got two parties. You got like a S shape. So you got two like common areas, and one had a party here, and there's another one having like a party there with their music. The one at the birthday party put in the group chat. Saying, to the attention of the people in the other block, your music is interfering with our birthday party. Could you please turn it off? Thank you for your cooperation. I was like, what?
Did the music go up by any chance?
I was like, what? Yeah. And more so, and then I was just dumbfounded. I was like, how on earth? Because this person, clearly, this is their personality, and they act like this 24/7, 365. This is who they.
It's main character syndrome, isn't it?
I would just say, imagine going through life that arrogant and that obnoxious.
Yeah.
But I think to be a founder, you have to have like a little bit of ego, a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of, you have to have that kind of drive. And I know more than anybody else in this industry. I mean, by nature, if you're a startup, I'm saying I know more than anyone else in staffing hospitality in the world. And there's some really big recruiters, and I'm saying I know more than you. You have to have a little bit of ego, a little bit of arrogance to say that, but you do back it up with action. But something like that that's just the bad arrogance. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, main character syndrome is definitely a thing these days. But yeah, that's interesting what you say about that, because if I would say, yeah, there's definitely a certain level of arrogance involved in being a founder. But having said that, I'm not sure if it's like always I know more about this industry necessarily, but like I'm convinced I know how to solve this problem or a set of problems, and the way that you're going about it either is wrong or you're not even bothering to do it. And that I think you're right. There is definitely a certain level of arrogance there, but it's at least it's not always. I've met some very arrogant assholes as well, for sure. But for the nice ones that I invite onto this podcast, it is usually a type of arrogance that isn't reflective of personality. It's more about the way that they navigate to achieve their goal. It's a slightly different type of.
It's more reflective of experience,
right?
Yeah. It's more of like I know how the world works in what I know, but where I've been, I know how this works, and you guys don't. I mean, like if you look at one of our competitors, they were graduates from university, brothers, and they just created it. They raised like 1 million straight away. I think it was from their dad. I looked at their company's house and I was like, Jesus Christ. There's some fun things in their company's house. I was like, oh, okay, right, it's that kind of company. And actually during the lockdown, I think it was like January 2021, we were in like full lockdown. No bars, restaurants allowed to open, and they had reviews coming in saying, "Oh, I did a shift yesterday. It was so amazing." And I'm like, "Where? Where in the UK? Please tell me. I need to go here. I want a pint. I want a Guinness from draft, not from a fucking can."
Yeah, no one told the agency in China to stop writing those reviews during lockdown. You couldn't get out of that contract.
And then they raised like a few more million, and they only had like 120 odd venues, and they'd raised like almost 20 million total. And they'd only had like 200 venues at that point. I'm like, okay, so where's my 20 million? I've got like almost 500 signed up. Like where's the cash? And I saw that, and I can't remember, but about like the arrogance. I came out of university. We're just funded by whoever, and the venues that I know who use them don't use them anymore, because they don't actually fundamentally know what they're doing. So just because you've raised 20 million, you're at 100 mil valuation, doesn't actually mean anything if your customers are leaving after a month.
I think you can also, just to play devil's advocate a little bit on that, which I'm very good at, by the way. I think that it is also very possible for a founder to have an idea for a business in something that they've not got any experience in, but then to learn about it. Like, I think that's really important, not to just blindly sort of continue into that vertical. But yeah, I think it's very possible to learn about it. But if you don't take the time to learn about it and understand your customers and so on, then you're going to be shooting blind, and you're inevitably going to go up against someone who's better equipped.
That's what deep tech is, right? I mean, deep tech is literally tech that doesn't actually exist yet, but I'm going to make it. And you may have been in like deep tech before, but that's not the same deep tech as where you are now. So yeah, no, for sure. But I know, just but when I saw this company, I was like, I mean, their metrics were on like attitude, productivity, and absences. These are very like big brother metrics. What's your attitude like? And the manager is really what reviewing you. So it's just based on does the manager like you or not. Your attitude, your productivity, and your absences. Like, okay, what about like your teamwork? What about your communication skills? What about your skills of making cocktails? Your skills of putting pints? Like, how about all this stuff that describes who you are as a worker? And what we do is a more fairer way of metricing people, where you could be a bit of an arrogant arsehole who doesn't like to communicate, be really bad at customer service, but you're really fast at pouring pints. Well, there's a place for you. You underspent, so you're just going to keep pulling pints and keep serving. And we try and show, okay, like this person has some shortcomings. Like I burn myself with coffee. Like I can't do coffee. I like do cocktails. You need to know what you're shit at and what you're really good at. And we're going to put you where you're really good. Yeah. Right. And then you can overcome other shit. But and I think that's what they did wrong. They were just like, what is your overall attitude, your overall productivity? And you can't metric that. Was it a bar? Was it a restaurant? What was it? And in that, there was no thought or due diligence in the actual platform, and that's where I think we're better, because we've actually thought about it. So yeah, that's
so. At what point, I mean, did you ever have ambitions of being your own founder at any point, or is this a lot more of an accidental thing? Because some founders I have on, it was a very sort of planned thing. They knew eventually one day that they wanted to run their own company, or was it that you had the sort of fairly typical dream most bartenders had back in the day, which is to open your own bar? Like, was that the sort of thing?
I think it's pretty much like every man's vision is to have their own pub or their own bar at some point. Just to be your own pub lord. I mean, it's a thing that most of us want. Actually, I do so with our platform. If I wasn't building it and running it, I'd try and work my way up to the point where I could be a bar manager over in Hawaii, because okay, yeah, you're working, but you're in Hawaii. Like, are you really working? Especially when we've got this overcast fucking clouds we have all year round in London. Apart from the last month, it's been really sunny the last month here. But
that's why you should move to Eastbourne, mate. It's always sunny here. It's wonderful here.
we do have that Digifest.
Yeah.
September 22nd. That's gonna be pretty fun.
Hopefully it'll be nice weather as well. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years ago I was in like nuclear engineering. So I was doing like I was basically trying to design a portable nuclear reactor, like a small modular reactor, which I termed the compact nuclear fission reactor. It's basically a reactor that you can transport from A to B. It can provide energy for a couple of years. But it's meant to be able to, you can democratize energy usage, like industrial estates, commercial estates, because use it for space flight. So nuclear jet propulsion, currently to get to Mars, it takes like 3 months. Using like Starship, it could take about 3 months to get there. But if you had nuclear jet propulsion, you could get there in about 2 weeks. So because when rockets get into space, they then have little thrusters that just kind of just jet and push them towards a new planet, which is millions of miles away, literally. So just kind of, for most of the trip to Mars, you're using gravity and just kind of like floating towards it, so there's no forces acting upon you. With nuclear propulsion, you would have the ability to keep on being able to push a lot longer and a lot further to get there a lot quicker. It does mean you've got to start braking for the last few days. The last few days you are literally just trying to stop. If you don't stop, then cool. We were going to nuke the ice caps like Musk wanted in that case. So actually, that's a pretty good idea. So I was working on that. when I was like 14 until like 18, 19 years old. To the point my mum actually went to EDF. There was a nuclear power plant in Dungeness, not too far from Eastbourne. And they offered me to come in for 2 months when I was like 18 years old. And my head teacher sat me down. He was like, you're missing too much education, so you can go for a week. And I was like, a week? I'm still able to put the hazmat suit on after a week. Like, this is 2 months to go to actually a nuclear power plant to actually probably learn about how to run a nuclear power station. Which obviously after that you're going to then get like your degree scholarship. You're going to get like a full ride to then get a job as a nuclear physicist. And he just went, yeah, I'm going to get the police involved if you go there. And I was like, right, okay. I mean, like, what education am I missing? Like, I'm literally doing fucking nuclear physics. My A levels are physics and math, like, and business, which is just look at the book and you've learned business. It's not that hard. And I was like, I'm going to learn so much more here, and he just wasn't having it. Proper state comprehensive school in Birmingham, which they
typical gatekeeper.
That was it. So that got took from me. I was at university. I was doing drones as well. So we had So I went to like 4 lectures apart from entrepreneurship for engineering, and that one I went to most of it. And so with this woman, Karina or something like that, and we had to design like a LiDAR drone, like a laser scanning drone. And I started designing something, and I was like, actually, this could be used for defense. This could be like a proper. Basically, had to make Skynet. Without like the centralization of Skynet, right? Decentralized Skynet, or DNet, something like that. I don't know. But that's actually what I was working on at university, and so that was going pretty well. We then found out that Karina, her business went bankrupt a few years ago, and then she came here teaching entrepreneurship, and she wanted us all to design a drone to give it to her to market. I'm like, your previous company was in drones. You want 200 of us to give you a design for a drone, and you're just going to market and not do anything with it? No.
This was a university lecturer.
This is a university lecturer, yeah. And we all put the pieces together. We was like, yeah, okay, you're going to try and steal what looks good. So we made a fake design drone to then submit to get some marks on, and then kept this one secret, which and that'll be my next business is in drones of defense. But I think to answer your question, I saw university as you've got 4 years where you're paid, where your bed's paid, you got a roof over your head, and you got food on your table for 4 years. So that's 4 years that you have no commitment to having to work. That's 4 years to make a business. So I went there knowing that I've always been an entrepreneur since like 14 years old. I was writing a novel before that. And yeah, I've always been that way minded. I think Barback is my first step to, if I solve like the labor crisis for, Earth, then I can go and do some other ventures, which are pretty cool as well.
And then it's taking over the Earth with DNet. That's the next step.
Well, baby steps. But unlimited nuclear energy as well, right? So we can just solve all the employment problems, all of the social problems, all of the energy problems, and all the war problems. Because the idea behind the drones was that you put them around like an entire border. Any alien aircraft entering the airspace will be shot down, and flares don't do shit. So the idea is, if you want to invade a country, you've literally got to put boots on the ground and march in, which you can't do anymore because we've got artillery. So the idea was it could end all wars. So you've got the employment stuff figured out for the planet. You've got all the defense to make sure no more wars happen on the planet, and then you've got limited energy for the planet as well. So you solve three of the biggest issues that Earth faces.
Conflict,
so that's kind of
employment, and resources. Yeah,
that's kind of my 3-pronged approach to trying to preserve society.
Right. So you're going to be the new the better version of Elon Musk, Elon Musk 2.0.
He's also got Asperger's, and our initials are both EM. So
Oh yeah, Jesus Christ! I didn't put that together. Wow. Okay, it's all coming together now. So this podcast will be looked back very favorably, hopefully in a few years. So that's good.
We'll see.
What about with the nuclear device you were talking about? Couldn't you put one on the front as well to slow down?
Well, no, but you just actually you put it on the back as a module. So if you have to jettison it, you can jettison it. Right. I'm not designing the spacecraft. I'm just designing the actual engine.
Yeah.
But so the way my reactors work was you'd have pressure reducing valves, which literally do what it says is pressure reducing valves. They just reduce pressure in the system. So I was like, oh well, actually, if you've got to reduce pressure to keep the system stable, we can then take those valves, push them at the front of the end of the spaceship and at the back of the spaceship,
propulsion.
and they're now your propulsion.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea. You could actually use what is required for the reactor to run and actually double it up as the spaceship thrusters.
Right.
That was the really cool design that I had for that.
So then you could, in theory, you could have a mechanism that switches that, so it then goes to the front for slowing down.
Yeah, that's it. They just tied to different pressure limits. So you have different valves at different levels of pressure. So you could be able to do stuff like that. Obviously, you need a pretty advanced computer to regulate all that stuff, and you've got to hope that doesn't go scriff, because otherwise, again, bye-bye. But yeah, that was one of the main ideas that we had.
It's a really interesting idea. I'm fascinated by the idea of emerging technologies in space. I think it's I think everyone's in agreement that it's really where the future of resource and a huge amount of other benefits can come from. What are some of the technologies, space-led technologies, that you're most excited about? Is it mostly resource-led, or have you or energy-led?
Oh no! So actually, in Florida, we did meet the VP of launch for SpaceX.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Actually, I asked him a question. I'll send you the video. I literally asked him a question. I was like, so they sort of video about their first space flight, and they're like, just civilians, just put them into space. And one guy wasn't actually nominated, but his friend got the ticket and didn't want to go, so he got his friend to go instead. They're in space, and they come back down, and the pilot goes, "Thank you for flying with SpaceX." And I was like, "Oh my god!" So I literally put my hand up. I'm like this. I'm like, please, sir. He asked me, and I was like, so when can we hear the famous words, "Thank you for flying with SpaceX"? And he just went, "Are you about point to point?" I was like, "Yeah," which means that we go from like London up Los Angeles down, half an hour. And I was like, "Yeah." He went, "I can't tell you," which means it's either really, really close or
really, really far away. Yeah.
Well, so they said Mars by like 2035. I think that we should be on Mars for 2035. And that's so I said, okay, well, what about it's just over 10 years. No longer at all. And as a point to point, he said, "We can't talk about it." So I'm like, it could be before Mars, or it could be like after Mars. I think it's before. I mean, it should be before. Surely you should be able to launch and land on your own planet before a planet that's fucking over yonder. Right? Like, you'd imagine.
Except that on Mars there aren't a lot of other governments to deal with airspace, the legalities of it, politics, and so on. So actually, it's probably a lot less red tape to just go off and fly to another planet.
Yeah, until little green men come out of their caves going, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then you also shit movement.
Exactly, and then you have all the airlines to battle with, who are probably going to be scared of, So there's probably a lot more politics involved.
Just tell them to avoid where we are. Like, I mean, look, our ship's a lot bigger than yours. It goes a lot faster. So this actually happened last week. I was at some art exhibition in Oxford Circus. I was waiting to go for a wee. You got like all these doors that they're like individual like toilets. This one door opened, and I went to go into it, and this little guy literally just walked to go in. I literally just walked, cut in front of me, just went in. I grabbed his backpack and just pulled. I was like, "You can wait." And just walked in.
How tall are you then?
6'2".
Oh, okay.
But like, I was just like, I just saw his backpack. I was like, "No, I'm bursting to the toilet."
So that's what SpaceX should do then.
But yeah, I mean, we went outside, and I was saying, "Oh yeah, I bet you earlier." He was like, "Yeah, I know you pull your back." I was like, "But I was in the wrong." And I was like, "At least you know you're in the wrong." But yeah, SpaceX. I mean, who's got the bigger ship? But he did say, "Oh yeah, you're bigger than me. That's how it works. That's the rule." And I was like, "Well, my dad is like 5'10", and he would really, really disagree." He used to hate it when he tell me off. He's got to look up at me, and I've got to look down, and he really, really. He's bald, got like tattoos and everything. He did not like that one bit.
I hope my son doesn't grow up to be taller than me. That would be devastating.
It's how tall are you?
I don't know, 5'7", something like that. Not very. It's my most common answer. Yeah,
not very. But
and this chair is making me look fucking smaller by the minute as well. Keeps going down. There we go. But yeah, so travel is an interesting one for you then, is it? But yeah, are there any others that sort of really excite you?
So travel, low gravity manufacturing as well. So you can put factories up in space. You can make really precise like microchips and nanochips, stuff like that. So well, not nanochips, but
I heard recently
nanotechnology.
a company had a pilot on a recent. They brought some technology with them, some sort of printer, I think for that exact reason, to start testing out the development and the manufacturing of microchips in space.
Of low gravity. Yeah, you can get a lot more accuracy. I mean, in 1517, the fund that went to go and meet, they've got a few of the investments in space tech, and they're all pretty interesting. One's doing more large-scale manufacturing and how to transport goods across space, which is a really interesting one. Actually, he invited me to go see his factory over in San Fran. So, if I close my round soon, then I said I'll have a few days over there just to go and, as like a business trip, but also again you're in San Fran, so like so you've got that. I mean, Starlink is pretty fun. It's just it's kind of, there's gonna be a lot of traffic in space in the future. Travel, manufacturing, they're the two biggest ones at the moment. And then I mean, so when I said about our nuclear reactors, that you can put it onto like a ship, you have to the ship has to launch into space first. You have to have a fucking big ass rocket, put it into space, and then you attach a nuclear engine onto the ship. So you have to assemble that in space. So you've got to build a shipyard, either on the moon or in space. So I think that someone soon is going to redesign it, if no one does it before me, or somebody else will design an actual like space station, like an actual station, not the Death Star, but like something like fairly big. We can actually assemble components of ships. And what it's going to lead to, or at least in my view, what's going to lead to, is modular shipbuilding. Like the International Space Station, where little bits, but they're like tiny little like cylinders, like this. They're very tiny things. We'd have that on a bit of a bigger scale, where people can actually walk and live in stations, but it'll all be built in a modular capacity. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of, even I'm talking like 10, 15, 20 years down the line, being like warehouses in space. We'll be able to shoot up like a starship just full of oxygen, and then put that into tanks in space, be able to hold in our warehouses and stuff. The issue with this is that you've then got a lot of space debris in space already. They orbit at certain levels, and the issue here is that these little bits of metal they travel at 17,500 miles an hour. So if you've got like an oxygen tank, you've got a little bit of metal coming in at a very fast speed, again, kaboom. And this issue we keep going back to about space is that the ability to go kaboom and go splat is very, very large. So I think that what I'm really looking forward to, and something that I might dedicate some of my Sundays to in the next couple of years, is on how do we clear space debris. So either torpedoes or webs or stuff. There's a few different things that we can use here to go and catch. Like, so how the Thames. In the Thames, you have these like huge like barges that collect garbage, and they travel off. Doing stuff like that in space, it's a bit harder because again, that garbage floats at like 10 meters per hour or per second, not per second, but per minute. Over in space, again, 20,000 miles per hour. So it's a little bit harder.
And in the Thames, you don't have bits of trash that actually are very important and can't be moved or taken away, like satellites. So you have to also account for that as well, don't you?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a harder game, but it's the exact same theory. So my Sundays, I mean, it's what I say to all my advisors. Like, I work 7 days a week. My Sundays are days where I get to just put things on the wall, see what it thinks, and just get to play around with like science and like rules and like news and stuff. I just get to see what we can make of stuff. It's my hobby day, basically. So
I think another really key to sort of conquering space, as it were, from an industrial perspective, to open up all these possibilities, from my understanding of it, and I'm not a scientist and I don't have a scientific background like you, but from my limited understanding of it, is the idea of a self-replicating mechanical system, right? So a robot essentially that can
Yep.
can self-replicate. From my understanding, that's an incredibly important sort of building block of being able to achieve all of these things. So to be able to deploy a robot or a set of robots, or whatever mechanical organisms, however you want to term them, who can take the resources of that planet and the energy that's around them, whether that's from sunlight or the planet itself, whatever, and just duplicate themselves. Because then you can get to what you're saying quite quickly of having these dock stations, having these shipyards in a very quick way and less expensive ways than moving everything out there.
Well, this is it. You'd have a station that could build, like a 200, 300 meter long ship, or at least square meters, and the actual yard that would build that would still only have 6 to 9 people on board. Most of it would be automated. I mean, Musk has made huge strides in this area with like autonomous manufacturing. He did say in an interview, said, "I think I know more about manufacturing than anybody else on the planet." And if you look at what he has done with these gigafactories, if you actually look at this, like how this works, he's done more than what Taylor and Ford did. The production line, he's the biggest thing to have happened since then. No one talks about it, but credit where credit's due. He's revolutionized manufacturing on what is going to be a global scale. It's going to take 10, 15, 20 years for it to affect most people, but this is going to be the go-to for most manufacturing companies in just over a decade. And we can apply that stuff in space as well. Again, I should say we've got to be careful how many solar panels we have in space, because then so with radiation you kind of get pushed. We have like solar sails to help push it towards like I think the Voyager has like huge solar sails, and then they just get pushed towards like Jupiter, or now outside of the solar system. There is that problem where if you have a big screen for solar panels, you're going to start getting pushed, and you have to have like a thruster to counter that. You've got to refuel that. So but there's a lot of moving parts. But so
it's like really a cost to expenditure. Of energy there that you need to balance constantly. Which is why the Dyson Sphere's sort of idea falls a bit flat, doesn't it? Because of that
I should have put my t-shirt down. Literally, I was wearing it earlier. It's like a little tank top, but I went to find it. So they called the weekend Friday Night Dyson Sphere. That's why Esther Dyson was there. I really should have. Right. But if you want to pause for like 5 minutes, I could go show you the t-shirt.
Do it. That's fine. Yeah, go and grab it. I have a sip of water. Yeah.
A couple minutes.
Here he is.
Are we there?
Yes. So let's see that. I'm here. I'm still here. Yeah. Yes, I can.
I can't see your screen though.
Oh, okay. I'm still here.
Okay, it's just gone black. Let's try and turn off camera and turn it back on again. I don't know why. It's literally, maybe we'll come back in a minute. This is literally, this is what it said, Friday Night Dyson Sphere. And the idea behind it was that people who were there, it was like a Friday night. Most people would go out to like a bar, like a pub, and they go out drinking, whatever. The people at that event, they were working on, like physics. They're working on like startups. They're working on innovation, on changing society. And so Friday Night Dyson Sphere, about the whole Dyson Sphere model. So I wanted to show you, it was
very cool.
Awesome.
And it makes sense because it's many single components to solve a much bigger problem. So makes sense.
But the Dyson Sphere, as you mentioned, it's in theory, it's a good idea, but how we could actually do that, I mean, that's definitely not where we're going to be at for, I'd say, a good few years.
Yeah. What's the name of you would probably know this. What's the name of the law in relation to the evolution of a civilization based on their sort of spacefaring abilities? There's like a name for that progression, isn't there?
You might have gone for like tier. You got like tier 1, tier 2.
The tiers, yeah. What's the name of that system again?
I actually can't remember the name of it. But yes, so you got.
But yeah, I remember hearing that Dyson Sphere was one of the most important sort of parts of that leap from, I think, tier 1 to tier 2 even, quite early on, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it's about, and then you go to like galactic travel and stuff like that. We start looking at warp drives and all that stuff. Is it? People say that's too far in the future, and it's not really a thing. But I could definitely see how that could happen. It's just gravity and forces, right? It's no different to. We don't know how to do that yet. I don't think for a while.
Yeah, we just need to learn how to bend space and time. How hard can that be? I tell you what, given enough Sundays, you could probably figure it out.
I mean, schools do it already, right? You go to school and time fucking drags. So all we've got to do is just apply that.
Yeah,
just get some
harness the power
of the ship. Yeah, just get some history teacher on the ship, and all of a sudden, it'll feel like a while, but it's not.
Yeah. Harness the power of boring politicians and teachers, and we've nailed it basically. Yeah,
you've nailed it. Yeah, but as you can tell, like I do like science.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, so I can't quite see it. So it's an astronaut, is it?
It's like an astronaut.
DNA.
The Da Vinci scale, like the skeleton version. DNA. It's in like a hologram. So the idea is, so this I'm going to get like a meteor going into Earth, and it will split off into nebula going down my arm, all in color. So the idea is, if we keep going where we are going, the severity of wars is increasing. The fight for resources is increasing as well. People being divided like never before. We're going to end up like this man here. On this side, I'm going to have it all base scale. You're going to have like biomechanics and like cogs and gears, like plumes of smoke. We have like a skeleton here with a builder's hat and a scythe. And that kind of symbolizes that if we kept going where we were going, that mass industrialization, mass pollution, and the changing climate, we have like him. And then on my back, I'm going to create a mural for my vision of like the future of society. There's going to be like a whole Michelangelo's like Fresno paintings.
Yeah,
the huge. Try and do one of those on my body, basically.
Well, that's a lot more impressive than mine. Mine are all just comic book characters. So I hadn't put as much thought into mine. I was like, that looks like a cool comic book character. I get that, but I like the fact that you're all full color as well. I'm a fan of the full color sleeve as well.
Apart from when you're getting it done, it's a lot of pain.
It is. This here,
a lot of pain
on my elbow. I do not recommend it. That was the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. It was horrendous. It was like, I can't even find real words to describe it to people, because I know a lot of people with tattoos and they've avoided those areas because they've heard that they're very painful. That was awful. It was making me physically sick. I felt it in my stomach as it was happening. It's horrible.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look into the elbow, I mean, that's nowhere near the elbow, but it's still close enough to you start knowing about it. And you start getting in towards the armpit. No.
This was a whole other level. Like it was no longer just painful on the arm. It was like painful in my whole body. Like I could feel it in my head, in my stomach. Like it was just, and it's not even finished. Like he didn't finish it. We were there for like a few hours. And I was like, we have to call it a day. I can't finish it. That's good enough. Like, and I'm not getting it finished. Fuck that. Maybe, yeah.
You're back. Can you show me your tattoo now?
Right, yeah.
Back. There we go.
Yeah. It's Ego, the Living Planet.
Okay.
From Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what he looks like in the comic,
I mean,
not whatever the actor's name is.
I am going to get a Fallout piece done on my body as well.
As in the game or the band?
The game. Do you play Fallout?
I did back in the day. Yeah, I haven't for many years.
I am probably
that's it. A nuclear physicist playing Fallout. That's very apt.
Well, so here's the fucking story. So literally, I was like 14 years old. I was playing Fallout 3. You're in like Washington DC, and you have this Tesla armor. There's like a huge power armor, and on the back you have two cylinders with this blue kind of like stripes in the middle. I was like, oh, they're nuclear reactors. Let's design one. And literally, I was just for fun. I was trying to design how it would work and stuff. And I was like, actually, wait a minute. I started learning about Kirchhoff's equations, the four-factor formulas, stuff like that. And I started really digging into actually this could potentially work. And I was like, okay, well, how do you play with physics here? Because the really fun thing there was, so normal nuclear reactor, you surge water through, it gets charged, goes up to the turbines, everything then makes electricity. But if it's in a portable nuclear reactor, you can't just keep on pumping water into it because you've got radioactive water coming out. And that stuff gives you 3 arms, 4 legs, and 6 eyes. So so if it's in a contained system, you've got pressure. And then that pressure, water expands, right? But if it's in a contained pressure, it's going to add pressure to the containers. And so if you look at titanium, it can handle 36 megapascals of pressure, which is a fair bit of pressure. Above that, kaboom. We keep going full circle. Like a lot of what happens, especially like physics and energy, it's all about how to not go kaboom or splat. And I'll send you later. It's like the four-factor formula basically shows about how to make a nuclear reaction like stable. And you got like sigma this and -1 that. It's all over. God knows all letters of the alphabet in the Greek alphabet are all there. It's a huge fucking. And the answer, you want to get to 1. Like this entire thing, you all want to get to 1. Below 1 means the reactions start to fade out. You know, like one reaction makes it 0.9, it goes down and fades out. Over 1, you have Chernobyl. Right. So it's a very, very important equation. And
quite precise.
And you have to do all of this math to get to 1.
Right.
And so I just loved it. And then but Fallout came from 4.
So a computer game inspired it. So basically, you've invented a proton pack, so we could actually have Ghostbusters as well, because that was a nuclear reactor on their backs as well, wasn't it? Which I always thought was a bit of bullshit, because like if I can't remember was it Egon? I can't remember the name of the scientist who invented the proton packs, but if he could invent that, then he could literally solve the world's energy crisis. So why did they use it for ghosts? For ghost hunting. Yeah. It's like
that's a bit of
and they were poor, and they were trying to scrape it together. It's like, you've invented the solution to all the world's energy problems. Go and sell that shit, you know?
I mean, I have to go and look, because I haven't watched Ghostbusters since I was like 7, 8 years old. But I think it may have been fusion, because fission, which is you split atoms, you get something called gamma radiation out of that, which you put it on your back, and after a couple of minutes, you've melted into a puddle.
That's how you make the Hulk.
Yeah, well, yeah. But fusion, which is obviously fusing atoms together and releasing energy, that could potentially be what they were using. But I mean, fusion is really scary. I mean, if you get say a gram of antimatter, which is fused materials, of fused atoms, if that can't touch anything in reality, you've got opposite spin. So if it touches anything, you get a big kaboom. 1 gram. If 1 gram interacted with any kind of particle, the explosion would take up Birmingham, which actually could be a good thing. Like, no one.
Sorry to anyone listening in Birmingham.
Well, I was there for 15 years, and I wouldn't miss it. Like, I'm kidding, of course, but that's literally like the size of the explosion that you would have. It would take up like most of Birmingham with 1 gram of antimatter. So again, we talk about the dangers in space and how quick something could go kaboom or splat there. On Earth with antimatter. I mean, there's why they shut down. The EU shut down CERN, right, for fears of destroying the Earth. So they thought it could create a black hole, and then that's just going to destroy Earth. So you didn't do that with fucking nukes, did you? There's other things that you definitely can.
Well, and this is the thing, going back to what we were saying earlier about how advancements will naturally mean that there are those with bad intentions who will manipulate them or take advantage of them. Like, space is no different there, right? From a defense perspective, we know that there's going to be a lot of nefarious activity out in space once we conquer that, not least testing of nuclear weapons or other kinds of weaponry. The military is going to have a huge level of involvement in that, and as as we all know, the military play a huge part in technological advancement. It's the parts of the governments that have the highest amount of funding for that kind of thing, and a lot of the technologies we have now as a result of nuclear, of military innovation.
Even the computer, the Turing machine, right? From the Nipper code,
Exactly. So it's important. It needs to happen, but it is also I suppose if we're going to test any nuclear weapons anywhere, out in space is probably slightly more ideal than at home. But especially if we start getting onto these kinds of weapons, where where we're weaponizing things like black matter or some other more significant things, or maybe sort of testing out. Like we're just talking about warp drive technology, or messing around with creating black holes, and that's all inevitably going to happen. I would feel much more comfortable knowing that shit was being tested out many millions of miles away than like down the road. But that's just me. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have a theory as well. Sorry, just really, I was thinking about this earlier before you went off to grab the t-shirt, but I have a theory as well that Elon Musk, going back to Elon Musk quickly, is actually a little bit more forward thinking than he lets on. Although he does appear to be very forward thinking in his idea for wanting to create Neuralink, as well as the range of androids that he wants to create. I have a theory that in his understanding of space travel, it requires non-human sort of pilots essentially to be able to do these endeavors. And a very important part of that, though, is if a human being can take over that non-human in a remote capacity.
Yeah.
So I think that's his logic of thinking there. I don't know if he's ever publicly come out and said that, but that's where I think he's going with that.
I kind of see his plan, which I don't really talk about because he's not spoken about it, so I'm not going to speak about it either. But I see what's happening, and it's a really, really good plan, and help with that. But yeah, with that end, I mean, there's a game called E13 where you were captured. You're in like space and like some like galaxy. I don't know if you've played it, and you're a capsuleer.
I have a little
bit,
bit,
capsule and interface with the entire ship, and that's kind of what you're talking about. Which I mean, a lot of sci-fi.
There's another one called Star Citizen as well, which is apparently really good. I've not played it, but it looks really amazing.
So I can see that. I mean, that's literally what the technology can do. But that's a part of it. But like I say, his overarching theory and plan it's pretty good. I'm a fan of it, and we can kind of fit into that in quite a few areas. So,
do you consider yourself something of a futurist?
It's hard because apparently I'm also a doomer.
Right.
And I don't know. Well, so we had this debate Friday when I was over in Florida. So we had a debate with the GP Michael. He did his PhD in philosophy, dropped out, and then met Peter Thiel, as you do, and then that started everything else. And so he was about existential threat, with like AI, nuclear, climate. I didn't get enough of a debate in, and I went to the GP, to Danielle. I was like, I want to debate him soon. She's like, well, go ask him. Tell him you turned him to a duel. There's a room free. So, the next session, we had a debate. And then I'm sat down there, about like 30 people who are watching. And he just turns and just looks at me like that, as if free to start. And then I realized this guy is a little bit older than I am. He's worked with Peter Thiel personally. He's worked with some of the smartest people on the planet, and he almost had a PhD in philosophy. And here I am to challenge him. So I didn't really think things through. As a cocky would say, you've told the total, you've got to walk the walk. I gave it a good shot, and I said, look, I'm not a doomer, but what I'm saying is, we kind of what I said earlier, we're building technology where the ramifications of that tech is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger exponentially. And so at some point in time T, it's going to go the other way. Something bad's going to happen. Like at some point, whether it's now or in 10 years or 100,000 years, at some, like if you keep hitting black on roulette, if you keep hitting black, you're going to hit red. At some point, it is going to happen. Mathematically, it's going to happen. We can delay it. I was even in Parliament for the AI white paper, and we're on about how to regulate AI. Okay, we have to have regulation, but if we have regulation, other countries, we've got to get them to come on board with regulation. Some of them won't, and even if they do all come on board, we caught some individual bad actors from actually abusing regulation. So we kind of come full circle to say we're going to regulate, but there's no point in regulating, and it's like, so we have no actual solution here. And I was like, okay, at some point in time, hopefully it's after we've gone to bed, but it's going to happen, and this is why we have to become a multiplanetary species, because we're locating this is going to happen on individual planets, not as a whole galactic species, unless I can't. So if you're on,
it's also about spreading risk as well, isn't it? Like that's why
you're spreading the risk. You're diversifying the species across, hopefully the entire galaxy over the next 10,000 years. And then if Earth does fall, which at some point probably, but nature will then come back in a couple of million years and repair everything. There's one thing that I don't like about obviously the Earth is warming. We're kind of getting to pre-ice age levels now. So the last ice age we had ended like 1850, like last mini ice age, and the Earth cooled by 2 degrees. We've now increased by 1.8 degrees. We're almost at pre-ice age levels, but we're accelerating. So that's the issue part, is acceleration. A lot of climate protesters, when I do have a little bit of a giggle, is when they say we have to save the Earth. I'm like, no, we don't. Like the Earth made it through the meteors. It survived the dinosaurs. It survived being bashed by solar radiation. It survived meteor strikes. We ain't got to say the Earth will be fine. The Earth is going to shrug us off like a fucking tree shakes off leaves.
Yeah,
it's us we've got to save.
Yeah,
it's not some noble cause to save the Earth. It's to save our own fucking lives. So how about we just say that and be honest? We've got to save ourselves.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being direct about that. Yeah,
the Earth is going nowhere. You can give it 1 million years and it's gone back to zero. Like, don't you worry.
Yeah. The only thing that's going to destroy the Earth is the sun. That's the only thing that's going to destroy the Earth.
And that's in like a few billion years, right? Like until
we've got a while.
Right, it's us. We're not playing this game very well. So it's something that I always find a bit funny. It's like, the Earth's going nowhere. It's us just going somewhere.
Yeah. What's your take? I'm going to ask this question, and normally around core 2, like when there's like 15 minutes, I go, I sort of try and wrap things up. But I really need to have your take on this. So really quickly, what is your take on the emergence of life lengthening technologies? Like, there's a lot of people talking about this, and the idea that they think that really within the next decade we're going to have the ability to increase our life expectancy substantially. Like, what's your take on that? Because there are some tie-ins with the desire to explore space and an increasing life expectancy. So what's your take on that sort of stuff?
I mean, you are playing with God to an extent. I mean, we are playing with the fundamentals of nature and the laws of biology here. I think in the long term, yes, this could work out pretty well. But again, the people who first try anything are the ones. I mean, even when it comes to like mining, hey, we can mine for fuel. Then you have these huge pockets of methane where people die. You have the first people to do this. It probably won't work out well for. With Neuralink, if you get the first Neuralink chip, if you can't remove it, maybe you can. There'll be future versions that are better. So what I'm saying is, yes, this could happen, but I'd rather when Microsoft, you have like Microsoft like 7, Microsoft 8, with Windows 7, Windows 8, they completely skipped Windows 9 because it didn't work, went to Windows 10.
Yeah.
Or you get like your phone and you have to have an update. You never update it straight away. Why? Because there's bugs in the update. You wait a couple of weeks and you update your phone. The same thing will happen with all this longevity stuff, is that the first few things, yes, they could do something, but there's going to be fucking problems. And these are bugs that are literally going to be inside you. So I say, yes, it's a good field. It's really promising. I'm just going to sit on it until I'm like in my 40s. I'll wait 20, 25 years, see what's happening, what's going on, and then I'll pin on that. I'm not going to be first in line.
You're not the early adopter. You're not at the beginning of that adoption curve. Then no.
I like I said from Ice Age, I choose life.
Yeah.
Which ironically means not choosing life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same with absolutely every single technology or innovation that's ever happened in the history of Earth. At the beginning, there's a lot of failure. There's a high failure rate at the beginning, and there's unintended consequences because it's a new field. So I'm not what it is. Just goes, oh yeah, longevity. We're going to be able to live forever. I'm like, yeah, well, let's just wait till the first cases come out first.
Of course, because this isn't a slight inconvenience that your phone crashes. This is your life. So
it's a little. Do you crash?
Slightly, yes, so slightly higher stakes. Yeah. Although if you get
really been popping off this episode.
yeah, for sure. But no, I needed to get your take on that, and like there's so many other things that we talked about that I could have talked about, and we could continue to talk about for ages. One thing I love about you, and you even sort of you've literally directly addressed it in a way when you're talking about how with the guy out in the States that you wanted to debate him. One thing I love about you is you clearly have a passion for conversation, right? Like myself, and I think I could be making the wrong assumption here, but I have a feeling that you appreciate the importance of argument. Right, the importance of discourse and like actually disagreeing with people and understanding different viewpoints and the value in that, as I do. Like, it's such a underrated skill to have, I believe, to amicably and very politely argue with someone. I think that's the art of the argument has died.
It really, as people get, especially as people get more radicalized and more extremist, and as society starts to partition, as it has been for the last 10, 15 years. But I'd say, look, Richard Feynman said, the greatest joy on earth is the acquisition of knowledge. And it is when you I love learning new things. I love finding out how stuff works. And it's awesome, but you can't get that by living in your own echo chamber.
Absolutely.
You have to debate it. And a lot of people, they don't want to ever be wrong. But if you're wrong, because again, it goes against your biological, like your biological nature of, if you are wrong, that means that it's something that you don't know. And if you don't know something, you have to question your own reality, which puts you in danger. So that's why people don't actually like admit when they're wrong, because it then puts them at risk of dying. Not to be dramatic, but this is true. But
not in the modern world. If anything, it's a far more beneficial to have.
It is. But to get over that biological, like that hardwired fact of we don't like to be wrong, because it means we're fallible, we're more easily, but we're not invincible. But I just, if I'm wrong, I'm like, okay then, cool. Well, I owe you the beer, but you've taught me something I'm going to be able to use next time. And you get to keep building on your domain of information.
And that's also the scientific approach. It's to have a fairly good understanding of the way you believe something to be as it is now, but be open to new information to change that viewpoint. I mean, that is the scientific method to a degree. It's consistently look at new evidence, consistently look at the new data, and adjust accordingly based on that. And the only way you can do that, like you said, is through speaking with others or absorbing that information. Is the exact reason why I love doing these discussions, because if I learn something, I get to meet different people, hear different viewpoints, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made doing this, because I'm having an absolute blast doing it, but I'm also getting that itch scratched, which just concentrating on building a business 9 to 5 every day, and then sitting down with the wife and eating dinner, as much as all those things are very rewarding, there's a certain itch I have. Yeah, exactly. It's like I have an itch for stimulating conversation and for learning new things, and this scratches that every time, and it's wonderful. So thank you for being part of my hobby.
I'm all for it. I was on a podcast again a week ago for Innovate UK, or 2 weeks ago actually, I think. For Innovate UK, which was Catapult, but they're working with them. A really good podcast, and I love everyone, they like some things that you say, and they prefer some things. You get to like develop on that and stuff, and then you kind of get quick intelligence, and then you have to go, okay, actually I forgot the name of this, I need to go and look that up again. And you kind of the pursuit of knowledge, I think, is something that actually, like I say, Michael from 5017, he does kind of mention in his book, saying that we haven't innovated that far at all. We've kind of stagnated in terms of innovation since we went to the moon. And I think people's thirst for development and innovation has kind of died. I mean, even when the space race was going on, didn't understand the first thing about rocket science, but they loved it. And they had the public support, and we don't have the public support for innovation anymore.
And for dreaming big, in being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I think there's a problem with us getting very comfortable, because of lives for a lot of people in the developed world, at least, is obviously it's quite comfortable. It's easy to just stay in that status quo, right?
I say we've retired. Like in the UK especially, we've retired. We don't want to push, don't want to try. We're happy just being where we are now. We conquered the world. We've completed it, and now there isn't that thirst for innovation. And but I think a lot of people can be pushed towards having that thirst. I mean, you just got to find something you're interested in.
Yeah, and that's why space excites me so much, because for me that is that next level of innovation, and exploring that. Well, look, we do have to start wrapping up a little bit. So, look, the way I like to end these things is getting your thoughts on, sort of speaking maybe directly to those listening who are, majority of founders and entrepreneurs too. Like, what you're on the raise at the moment. You've had some very successful experiences there, as you've talked about in the States and so on, and in your journey running the business up to now and all your other endeavors. So there's a lot to draw from there. So what advice, if any, would you be able to give out to those listening, either in relation to running a business or starting a business or funding? You've got a lot of different areas there. Maybe you could give out some tips for.
I've got to come into 5 minutes.
I would go.
so numero uno, I would say, is just be prolific and give everyone 5 minutes of your time. I think I told you 2 of my investors I met on 2 different train journeys, and one of them was like a night train, everyone's sleeping and the train stopped, and this guy goes, "Are we not moving?" I was like, "Are you Scottish?" He went, "Ah." He went, there's a bar on the train. Should we use it? There's a bar on the fucking train. Like, why not? And we did what two Scotsmen should do, and we literally bled it dry. They became investors, a global director.
Wow.
And then another one I met on a train. Coincidentally sat opposite him. You thought I was talking to him when I was on the phone, and I just made a joke. But you thought I was talking to you, didn't you? Also, always carry a 4-pack on the train. This is a key requirement. You have to be able to just crack one open and just pass it to them. And that is actually, well, this is how I got them. But between the two, I got like 44 grand, right?
Yeah.
In investment, and they're 2 good advisors, and they were angels. But yeah, I was like, hey, do you want a beer? I was like, yeah, sure. And then
that's really good advice. Always carry beer with you.
whenever you're getting a train journey, like literally always take a 4-pack. You need it. And just give everyone 5 minutes. Within that 5 minutes, you kind of know if someone's worth your time or not.
Yeah.
And just be prolific. It could be an investor, could be an advisor, they could know someone. I met one of the consultants for the Dorchester collection. It's a really good hotels. On a train as well, and also don't judge, because he was like 78 years old, and like white hair, in like a tracksuit like jacket, tracksuit bottoms, and some like old like scuffy trainers. He was a consultant for the Dorchester. And the way I got his attention was I always have my business cards on the train, so everyone can see like the business card, and you got like your laptop sent, and everyone can just see, oh, what's that? That looks relevant. Everyone who is relevant will be like, oh, what's this? So you put one up and then one on your name, so they can see, okay, it's a company, founder and CEO. He's the guy who, and sometimes you do get people actually ask. On my training, almost at least every time I'd have at least one person who'd ask something. That's number one. 2, actually, Ken told me this one, and he said he likes people that have strong ideas that are weakly held. This is something that I do quite a lot, is that you have to be passionate, you have to believe that you are right, you have to believe that you are correct, but you have to have the malleability to change your ideas. When confronted with your opinion. As much with debate, you have to know when you're wrong, and you have to know how to build. And he kind of said that, and I kind of realized that I too kind of do this. That's another one. You can't just believe I am right. And to it, there was a guy called Ivor, who's got a really good like HR platform measuring burnout. And I told him, like, dude, give everyone 5 minutes of your time. And actually the very next week, he came into the office. He was like, Ewan, I've got to thank you for what you told me. So I went to a bar, and with one other guy, both went to the same booth at this bar. And they said, oh, do you mind if I sit with you? Would that be okay? And I was like, yeah, sure. Head of HR for PwC. Deloitte, not PwC. And so straight away, he was like, oh, well, I'm building this startup. And he was like, well, okay, send it to me. We'll see what we can do with you. And he got into one of the directors at Deloitte because of that. Because I said, give everyone 5 minutes. You have no idea who you're talking to. You have no idea who you're walking amongst. I mean, isn't it like a stat that you walk past like 4 psychopaths a year, like whenever you're out and about? Like, so you literally have no idea who you're walking past. So you may walk past like an investor, or there's a lot more investors and founders than there are psychopaths, right? So you're walking amongst a lot of people. So give everyone 5 minutes. And if you are confident with new knowledge, like take that in and then spit it back out. Don't just double down, as a lot of people do.
That's really good advice, because the world is one huge networking event, right?
With social creatures, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's good advice. Really good advice. And I like it because it's some of the best investments I've seen be made across any organizations with any founders I spoke to have been purely organic. Like, just a friend of a friend, like you said, bumped into people on the train, like stuff like that, because those are real human connections. So that it's not starting off, there isn't an imbalance of power in the interaction, where it can happen quite a lot in very, sort of very traditionally structured investment / founder interactions, where it's a complete imbalance of power. There's so in a regular social interaction, you're just two people just having a chat, and things can come of that, and that is the best way for relationships to build, and the best way to get to size each other up in a much more meaningful way, right? There's no bullshit there. It's just, this is who I am.
And that's another one, is be genuine. Like a lot of people, they put their barriers up, and I'm not a fan. I am just unapologetically me.
Likewise.
and especially when I was in America, it's kind of what I realized. A lot of people are just themselves, and I was like, that is true freedom. If you're not putting up barriers of the how do you do? Oh, I'm okay, thank you. How about you? It's just BS. Just be yourself.
Unless you're a dickhead, don't be yourself. That's my advice
you
to
get
people.
educated to
Be yourself.
dickhead,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And the only way I suppose you could be educated to stop being a dickhead is if you are a dickhead and people call you out for being one. So I guess you have to be yourself in order to learn not to be yourself.
What's the whole Cameron argument as well?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, look, awesome. Thank you so much. We have to wrap it up because I do have to jump off and edit this video now because I have to take out 2 bits. But yeah, man, it was really good seeing you. But I'll see you again soon in Digifest in September, isn't it? So yeah, I look forward to that.
September 22nd.
We'll have a couple of beers. Well, it'll be non-alcoholic beer for me because I quit drinking because I'm sensible like that. I'm a very sensible grown up now.
I don't believe in quitting, you know.
The way I see it is that I drank enough to last me 5 lifetimes when I was younger. I don't need that anymore. And also just I'm getting too old, man. Like the hangovers now just kill me off, and I'm not productive for like a week, you know. So yeah, we can talk about that next time we see you and my other reasons why, which I won't get into now. But yeah, man, really good to see you and catch up with you. Finally managed to pin you down, and really exciting to see what's going on with, you know, everything that you're building. Yeah, I'm really excited for you, and I'll be cheering you on as always in the sidelines. So yeah, thanks for being here.
It was a pleasure.
See you later. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. Please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments below.